Have you ever really stopped to wonder what goes through a customer's head in that split second before they pick your product or your competitors? For years, the standard playbook was based on this idea of a perfectly rational buyer. But what if that whole model is just wrong? We're going to get into the real psychology of how people actually make choices.
This old thought experiment, Burden's paradox, just nails the problem perfectly. If you try to logically optimize every single decision down to the last decimal point, you can end up completely paralyzed. The donkey, by trying to make the most rational choice, ends up making no choice at all. And that right there is the fatal flaw in thinking pure logic is running the show. So, this sets up the big tug-of-war we're going to explore. On one side, you've got the old-school economic view, right? The consumer as a human calculator, carefully weighing every pro and con to squeeze out every last drop of value. But on the other side, you have the psychological reality, the consumer as a cognitive miser, using mental shortcuts to get to a good enough answer with the least amount of brainpower.
All right, so before we tear it down, let's take a good look at the model we're trying to get past. This is the ideal of the perfectly rational choice, and it's been the bedrock of classic economic theory for a long, long time.
The way this model sees it, every single decision is this big, four-step calculation. First, you identify everything that could possibly matter. If you're buying a car, that's price, gas mileage, safety ratings, the color, cup holders, everything. Then, you decide how important each of those things is to you. Then, you score every single car on every one of those attributes. And finally, you crunch the numbers to get a total score and pick the winner. Sounds simple, but wow, is it demanding.
Okay, let's make this real with the choice most of us make, buying breakfast cereal. As you can see here, we've given importance weights to a few things. Nutrition is the most important at a 7, taste is a 5, and so on. Then we rate cereal A on each of those. You just multiply the importance by the performance for each line, add it all up, and bam, you get a total value. In this case, 110.
And I mean, this quote from the Nobel laureate Richard Thaler just says it all, doesn't it? The rational model assumes we are all econs, these mythical supercomputing creatures that exist only on a blackboard. But real people, actual humans, we don't work like that. We get tired, we get hungry, we don't have all the information. We are not econs. And that brings us to the real heart of the matter, the reason the rational model falls apart in the real world. See, we're all constantly, and usually without even thinking about it, trying to balance two competing goals. The official term for this is bounded rationality. It's a huge idea, but all it's really saying is that our ability to be rational has limits. It's bounded by the information we have, the time we have, and frankly, the sheer amount of mental energy we're willing to spend on a problem, especially a problem like which box of cereal to put in our cart.
So you have this constant tension. Every choice pulls you in two directions. One part of your brain wants to do the exhaustive research, read all the reviews, and find the absolute #1 best possible option. But another part of your brain, often the part that wins, just wants to make a decent choice and get on with life. The way our brains solve this conflict is by taking shortcuts.
And these mental shortcuts, they have a name, heuristics. Think of them as the mental rules of thumb we all use every single day to get through the world without our brains grinding to a halt from overanalysis.
One of the most common ones is called satisficing. It's a mashup of satisfy and suffice. The goal isn't to find the best option, it's to find the first good enough option. You set a minimum standard in your head, like, I need a place for lunch that's under $20 and has 4 stars. You start looking, and the very first place that checks those boxes, you pick it. You're done. You don't keep searching, even if a 5-star place is right around the corner.
Now, another really powerful shortcut is the lexicographic heuristic. This one is all about radical simplification. You just decide what the single most important factor is, and that's the only thing you look at. You're booking a flight, and all you care about is price. You sort by price, you pick the cheapest one. End of story. You completely ignore layover time, the airline, the departure time, all of it.
So look, these aren't just interesting theories. They have real consequences. Let's go back to our cereal example and see how using these different rules can lead to totally different outcomes with the exact same set of facts.
All right, here we are again. 3 cereals with different scores on our 4 attributes. Just to refresh, our shopper cares most about nutrition. That's got an importance weight of 7, and then taste, which is a 5.
So if you're the econ, the super rational buyer, you do all the math. As we saw, after you multiply all the weights and scores, cereal A comes out on top with 110 points. Cereal B is close at 108, and C is way back at 97. So the rational choice, clear as day, is cereal A.
But what if our shopper uses that lexicographic shortcut?
They only look at the single most important attribute, nutrition. Well, cereal B scores a 7 on nutrition, cereal A only scores a 6. So in this scenario, cereal B is the instant winner. The decision is over in a second, and the result is completely different.
And this is where it gets really powerful. What if the customer is satisficing? Maybe their simple rule is, I want a cereal with a nutrition and taste score of at least 6. In that case, the winner is simply whichever cereal they happen to see first on the shelf that meets that standard. The choice is suddenly not about quality, but about context, store layout, and product placement. Any of the three could win.
Now, this whole idea of mental shortcuts doesn't just apply to choosing products. It fundamentally changes how we think about something that we assume is totally logical and interchangeable: money.
It's a phenomenon called mental accounting. Now, in theory, a dollar is a dollar is a dollar. But in our heads, not even close. We put money into different mental buckets. There's salary money, which is serious, gift money, which is for fun, vacation money. There's a famous example of a guy who would never dream of spending his own hard-earned cash on an expensive cashmere sweater. But when his wife buys the exact same sweater for him as a gift from their joint bank account, he loves it. Financially, it's identical. Psychologically, it's a world apart.
Let's try a quick test. Picture this. You paid $10 for a movie ticket ahead of time. You get to the theater, you reach into your pocket, and it's gone. You lost it. So the question is, do you pull out your wallet and spend another $10 to buy a new ticket? Just think about your immediate gut reaction.
Okay, now scenario 2. You're heading to the theater, planning to buy a $10 ticket when you get there. You arrive, you open your wallet, and you realize you've lost the $10 bill somewhere along the way. The financial loss is exactly the same, $10. Do you still go ahead and buy the movie ticket?
The results from this are just fascinating. Overwhelmingly, people say no to buying a second ticket in the first scenario, but yes to buying the ticket after losing the cash. So what's going on? It's mental accounting. In scenario 1, the cost of that one movie just doubled to $20 in our mental entertainment account, and that feels way too expensive. But in the second scenario, the lost $10 comes out of some general, vague cash account, and the price of the movie is still just $10. Same money, completely different mental boxes.
Okay, so what does all this mean for business? It means everything. Once you know customers use these shortcuts, you can design for them. For satisficers, that end cap display at the grocery store becomes incredibly powerful. For lexicographic buyers, your marketing needs to shout about that one key feature that matters most. And when it comes to pricing, you can frame costs to fit into mental accounts where they hurt less. A rebate or a bonus feels like found money, and people are way more likely to spend found money than their salary. And that really leaves us with the one question that matters. The goal isn't to wonder if your customers are rational. They aren't. None of us are. The real work is to figure out the specific, predictable ways they're irrational. Which shortcuts are they using when they see your product? What mental accounts are they drawing from when they see your price? Because the answers to those questions, that's the key to really understanding why they choose what they choose.